Welcome to the Real News Network, coming to you from Washington, D.C. We're at the conference America's Future Now. We're now joined by Ed Schultz. He's the host of The Ed Show on MSNBC. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Good to be here.
So last time we talked was in New Hampshire, and you were an advocate for candidate Obama. Now that we're 100 and so many days into the administration, how has he lived up to your expectations?
I'm very pleased with the president and his staff and what they're trying to accomplish. The S-chip bill is very important. Stimulus package was something that had to be done. The tsunami that took place on Wall Street had to be addressed. I think when you and I spoke the last time, who knew that we were going to have the mortgage crisis, the subprime crisis that we've got. So he's had to juggle a lot of things, not to mention Iraq, Afghanistan. It's not an easy job. I think that he has done about as good a job as he can do with the hand that's been dealt to him.
Well, you have been very associated recently with two issues that are core to his election campaign. One was a promise of a public health care plan, and two was the Employee Free Choice Act. So let's start with health care. Now, first of all, he and certainly Senator Baucus, who's been chairing the Finance Committee, have taken the single-payer plan off the table, and it's not even clear whether a public component is even still on the table. Even the public campaign competing with the private campaign seems that question. And we don't see President Obama using his enormous political capital coming out swinging for one of his core election promises. So doesn't that concern you?
Well, it does concern me, but that doesn't mean it's over, and that doesn't mean that it won't happen. I have a great deal of confidence in Ted Kennedy. I have a great deal of confidence in some other Democrats that understand the dynamic of this, that we are going to have to bring down costs, and the only way to do that is to get some competition in the market and maybe even fear them into a public plan that will reel in the institutions that have run these costs through the roof on the American families. Big Pharma's not going to back off. HMOs aren't going to back off. The insurance companies are going to throw millions of dollars of lobbyist effort to derail any effort that we have. When I say we, I mean the progressive movement. I am a big believer that President Obama, push comes to shove, he'll be there for those people in America who need assistance in health care.
Well, what do you make of the fact that single-payer plans, not even quote-unquote on the table?
I take the president at his word. He says if he was starting from the beginning that he'd go that direction. But he's going to eventually get us there. I believe that. And I don't think he should hide that at all. When he signed the S-chip bill, I was in the room, took notice when he said that this is only a down payment on getting every American covered. I'll take President Obama at his word because I took him at his word as a candidate. I think he's an honest man. I think he's got a lot of forces that are trying to derail his effort to do that. And so I don't expect miracles in 200 days. I do expect him to fight for it, as you say, and I think he will.
But isn't it not even to allow, when they had the Senate Finance Committee, a single person at this table to advocate the single-payer position?
That bothered me. That bothered a lot of Americans.
And when you listen to what Baucus said, Baucus had a press conference at the Kaiser Family Foundation a few days ago. And he said, we're going to have a plan which a little bit of public and a little bit of private, not too far either way. And it's very clear Baucus is committed to a plan that private insurance can live with. They're not going to get into a struggle over this. And we don't hear anything other than that from the president either.
Yeah, well, here, we're all arranging chairs on the Titanic, in my opinion, right now. Eventually, we're going to get to what the people want. And the people have to be vocal, the people have to be vigilant and continue to go after this. But what I see happening, first they tell us that single payer is off the table. Now it's reported today in the major newspapers across the country that Mr. Grassley, the ranking Republican on the Senate Finance Committee, is now saying, well, if we don't get it done this year, we got a political year next year, and then, they won't want to go through the tough votes. And then we get to 2011, gosh, everybody's running for president. That is a horrible attitude. That is unacceptable. And the Obama administration needs to know that these are fighting words. I mean, the American people want some coverage. And this is no time to be slickered or dumbed down by a bunch of conservatives where their agenda completely failed this country, failed the middle class, failed labor, failed foreign policy, the economy. Go right on down the list. The conservative agenda in this country should be totally rejected, not just for one election, but for a number of years. And the progressives should push hard and not give up. And one of the big things is health care. And a single payer needs to be on the table. I thought the Obama administration made a mistake by not addressing that and forcing that voice to be at that table. And to say that it was never on the table is wrong. What's on the table for the American people? What's on the table for the American people is that they want single payer. Well, they definitely want a public option.
Well, Senator Baucus has made it clear, and it's not clear from President Obama anything other than this, which is they're just negotiating a deal with the private health care plans.
Well, if that's what it turns out to be, then there's going to be hell to pay. I'll say, that's my prediction. I think that there's going to be a backlash from the public, and the Democrats will lose a tremendous amount of credibility if they allow it to happen like that.
Because President Obama's position more or less comes down to, I can't get a single payer plan through Senate, even though I think it's a better plan. And there is a way, in theory, to get it through Senate if he were to do something closer to, in fact, what you're doing.
Yeah.
A direct appeal to the American people.
Absolutely.
If you want this, come with me and tell the Senate that you're demanding this. In other words, carry on with the momentum from the election campaign, where he said, I have a campaign that's a movement. That whole discourse seems to be gone.
Well, here's where liberals and Democrats run into trouble, is having a backbone. Now, the people have spoken. We've got the White House, the House, and the Senate. And they did this because they thought there was going to be real change. Now, we've got a lot on the table for the country right now. But to have the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee say that, I think is troubling. I think it's wrong, because that's not what Americans are saying. Exclusion is not what it's about. It's inclusion. And if I view that as personally, and a guy who's done 15 town hall meetings in the last year across the country, I got a pretty good idea what the people are saying and what they want. And they don't want exclusion. They want their voices heard, and they want to make sure that this, whatever it is they come out with health care, is not just lipstick on a pig, and then everybody on the Democratic side go out and sell it at rallies saying, oh, it's so wonderful, and then we all get our health care bill in the mail. That ain't going to work. That will cost the Democrats. And I'll go so far as to say this. If the president wavers on this, there'll be a backlash. If he wavers on the outsourcing of jobs, if he doesn't do what he has to do to create jobs, and those numbers are leveling off or even dipping further, he could be a one-term wonder. Now, I realize that we're inside 200 days of just starting out, but the issues are shaping fast, and the battle lines are being drawn.
Well, one of those issues and one of those battle lines is the Employee Free Choice Act.
Absolutely.
President Obama spoke about it often during the campaign. Whenever he was at a rally to do with unions, he talked about how strongly he endorsed it. I haven't heard a word about it since he was elected, until he was asked about it at the town hall in New Mexico, where he said he was for it again. But again, is he going to stick his neck out for it? It's certainly not clear. And the gossip around Washington is that it's dead.
Well, it shouldn't be dead. There's nothing wrong with Americans having an opportunity to bargain, to organize, and to have collective bargaining. And we have got to stop, in my opinion, we have got to stop the intimidation of the workplace, the retaliation, the targeting of employees who think that organizing and collective bargaining is a better way. One of the reasons why the Employee Free Choice Act is being pushed back on so hard is that it has a date specific. If you were to go into most workplaces in America, and if you were to hold a union vote, 90% of the time it would pass without interference. Now, you get that union vote, that doesn't mean you're going to get an agreement. And what the Employee Free Choice Act does is it has a date specific that if you can't come to an agreement, an arbitrator is brought in. There's not going to be a big window of opportunity for the company to target employees, to organize against those who organize the vote. The retaliation is not put in place. And so there are protectionary levels here because it's date specific. That's what the Chamber of Commerce is against. That's what they fear. Because when you look at the last 8, not only 8, but the last 10 years, how wages in this country have been depressed, you give people an opportunity to go out and vote to better themselves in the workplace when we have seen CEO pay in this country quadruple over the last 10 years, and wages of the working folks get depressed because of healthcare costs, because of energy costs, because of operating costs, and the jobs being shipped overseas. We got a tsunami coming. We have a real tsunami coming in this country. And this is a very exciting time for people in the media because we're going to be tested as to whether we stood up and challenged. This is another war. It's a different war. We didn't speak up before we invaded Iraq the way we should have. And now, are we going to speak up for the American worker? Because this outsourcing trend will continue. You can talk green jobs all you want. You got to show me the jobs.
Well, speaking of green jobs, what do you make of the Detroit situation? If there was ever a golden opportunity, if you're going to use all this public money and you're essentially nationalizing the auto industry, if there was ever a golden opportunity to give this new nationalized industry a public mandate of a new green transportation system and use this as an engine for a new economy that creates green jobs, Detroit was the opportunity. It seems like it's an attempt to go back to an old model.
This, to me, is a travesty. I've said all along on my radio show that bankruptcy is not an option. We've got a double standard going here. Wall Street was basically asked by the last administration and rubber stamped by this administration, what do you want? And General Motors and Chrysler had a gun put to their head, date specific, show us your plan, how you're going to make money. Wait a second. I get all that. They'll make money. They'll make money as soon as the economy gets better and people are buying cars again. But what I'm afraid of is that we've now reached the new normal. There's not going to be 15 million cars sold in America anymore. There's not going to be 11. There's going to be 9 million cars sold in America.
And they're talking about that being the new business plan.
They're talking about that as the new normal.
So
why?
Where's the green economy with the jobs?
Well, wages are depressed. Jobs are outsourced. The middle class has been gutted. Tell me who's going to be buying these cars? And this is...
At $14 an hour, this will be the first time auto workers can't buy their own product.
It's sad. I don't agree with bankruptcy. I believe that if you're going to throw $800 billion at Wall Street, you ought to throw at least $100 billion at the manufacturing sector to save these jobs and help this economy get back again. And we've got to, and this is Adam, they all tie together. We have to fix the trade agreements. I don't care, okay, so we're not going to be building cars at the rate we were before in past generations, but now we're going to do solar panels, now we're going to do wind turbines, now we're going to do all these other green jobs that are retrofitting buildings and everything else, and the materials. Where are we going to get the materials? Where are the materials going to be manufactured to retrofit these buildings to bring our energy costs down? And when you're dealing with bad trade agreements, and this goes to the Clinton year, NAFTA was horrible, GATT was horrible, the Colombian Free Trade Agreement is horrible. It doesn't do anything for them. We do not have a level playing field, the manipulation of currency, and we've just had bigger fish to fry, but that is the big shark in the water.
So I've interviewed quite a few people here today and over the last month or so. You're the first person who's of a progressive persuasion who uttered a bit of a threat to Obama. You said, but I'm not hearing it anywhere else. And are we not in the same situation where, a Democratic administration says they got nowhere else to go but support me, so all I really have to do is appease the right.
I'm not threatening him. But it's interesting that you put it that way, and that's fine. I respect that. But this is the tone that progressive has to have. There will be, I'll guarantee you, there will be political fallout in Michigan, in Ohio, in Indiana, if jobs don't turn around. Because just like people are going to vote their pocketbook, they're going to go back, and the electorate's going to sound, the campaign's going to be like this: what did Obama do for you? What's your unemployment rate? I tell you what, I asked Jennifer Granholm tonight from Michigan on the heels of this GM bankruptcy thing, what commitment do you have from the administration for all these green jobs in Michigan? Hey, I'm all ears. The American people are all ears. But I'm just telling you, it's not a threat. I'm warning the president, and he knows it. I think he knows it. But the fact is that this has got to turn, and there's going to have to be a massive infusion and an effort to get these green jobs and manufacturing jobs, because we've done it for Wall Street. We basically asked Wall Street, what do you want? We've turned around and told the American worker, this is the deal. I think that's a death knell for the Democrats.
There's only one way that happens, which is you break from 90% of new jobs have to come through the private sector, which was what President Obama has said, and you go back to a 1930s-style Roosevelt program where you just hire a lot of people.
Well, that's interesting, because I've been harping on this too. Where's the cheap money? I'm a business guy. I got 2 businesses. Why can't I get Wall Street money? I go to buy a camera. I go to buy, skid steer for the boys who lay concrete back in the Dakotas and Minnesota, or a small company. They're quoting me 9.5%. I don't want 9.5%. Where's the cheap money? Where's the easy credit? You go to a big city today and you try to get an apartment in a nice area. They want your tax returns. They want letters of recommendation. They want all your bank. I mean, nobody's trusting anybody. And credit's tight right now.
Yeah, liquidity hasn't started.
We have thrown $800 billion at Wall Street, and yet we're choking small business in this country, changing the rules, confiscatory rates on small business. I'm not getting it at 0.5% or 1.5%. Where's my deal? And that's what the president is going to have to answer. It's interesting. You mentioned that he went down to Albuquerque, and the first question was Employee Free Choice Act and then single payer. He's going to get questions about, the third question, I believe, at that town hall that you're talking about, was about small business.
That's right.
And cheap money. So it's coming. It's out there. They're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. And I want to know, I think this is under the radar. The president's in Egypt. The story is Geithner in China. I want to know what deals being cut. I want to know what they're being told. I want to know if this outsourcing is going to continue. I want to know if there's going to be manipulation of currency. I want to know if they're opening any idea at all to World Trade Organization agreements and not cheating. What we're afraid to say in the media is China cheats. They cheat on their trade agreements. And there's probably going to be a big story coming up here in the next few weeks.
Well, if they're cheating in collaboration with American companies.
We'll see.
So maybe we can talk again soon, and we'll see if you get your answers.
Always got room for the truth.
Thanks very much.
I really believe that this is an exciting time, but winning the election was the first weight on the bar. There's more coming that needs to be lifted.
Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Real News Network, and you can see more of Ed Schultz on The Ed Show on MSNBC.